Hey everyone! In this video we are going to be doing some examples of how to factor a quadratic using decomposition. So we're going to get a little quadratic up here in standard form, 2x squared minus 5x minus 3, and just a little bit of a reminder that standard form is when a quadratic is written as ax squared plus bx plus c. We're going to use a little bit of a modified sum and product rule here. The sum is still going to equal the b value, the number in front of the x, but since there's a number in front of the x squared, our product is going to have to be a times c. So the number in front of the x squared as well as the term that's added on at the end. Which means that for this particular example, our sum is going to equal negative 5, and our product is going to equal 2 multiplied by negative 3, so our product is negative 6. Now it's our job to come up with two numbers that fit that criteria. We need to come up with two numbers that add to be negative 5 and multiply to give negative 6. And these ones are pretty small ones, so I think I'm going to go quick here. Those numbers are negative 6 and 1, because negative 6 and 1 add to be negative 5, and those two numbers multiply to be negative 6. What we're going to do now, and how decomposition works, is we're going to replace that minus 5x with a minus 6x and a 1x. So here's what I'm going to show you here. We're just replacing that minus 5x with a 1x and a minus 6x. Now that still adds up to be minus 5x. And where did we get those two numbers? We got them from the sum and product rule. But the thing to remember is this is still equal. That's still a minus 5x. We just broke it into two parts. Once we've done that, we're going to separate our little quadratic into two parts and factor the first half and factor the last half. So is there anything out of the first half that we can factor? Only an x. So we divide the first term by x and the second term by x, and it leaves us with 2x plus 1. Is there anything we can factor out of the second half? A negative 3. So we can divide both terms by negative 3. Negative 6x divided by negative 3 is 2x. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is plus 1. And oh, I like the looks of that. We got the same number twice. And you'll know right away if you did this correct. We can then factor out that term that we just got twice, leaving us with a 2x plus 1, because they both have a 2x plus 1, multiplied by whatever is left over. In this case, an x minus 3. And just like that, happy face, we were able to factor this quadratic using a modified sum and product rule decomposition. We're going to go through a second example here, except this time I'm going to go a little bit slower on how we get the two numbers. We're starting off with another quadratic in our standard form, 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. Our sum is still the b value. For this particular example, that's a negative 11. Our product will equal our a value times our c, so 6 times negative 10 is negative 60. This one's a little tougher to come up with the two numbers. However, because the product is negative, we know that one number has to be positive and one number has to be negative, and because the sum is negative, we actually know that the negative number has to be bigger. So a little bit of reasoning there can save us some work. But what we're going to do is list off numbers that multiply to give negative 60, because that's easier to find. Negative 60 plus 1, definitely not negative 11. Negative 30 plus 2, also not negative 11. Negative 20 plus 3, ooh, that's negative 17. We're getting closer. Negative 15 and 4, that's it. And it's actually a lot faster to start listing off things that multiply to give negative 60 than it is to multiply what adds to give negative 11. You're going to find the two numbers quicker. Now that we have our two numbers, we are going to replace that negative 11x with these two new terms. So we have a 6x squared, and this time we're going to separate that negative 11x into a negative 15x plus a 4x minus 10. This is still equal to what's above. We're just decomposing it. We're pulling it apart into little pieces. And how did we get those two numbers? The sum and product rule. We're going to separate our quadratic into two parts, the first half and the second half. We're now going to try and factor something out of each part. In that first half, when we look at those numbers, is there anything that we can factor out of them? We can factor out a 3x. 6x squared divided by 3x is 2x. Negative 15x divided by 3x is a negative 5. In the second half, we have a 4x minus 10. Is there any common term that we can factor out? We can just get a 2. We divide both of them by 2, and we do 4x divided by 2 is 2x, and negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5, and once again, we get the same numbers. So we have a 2x minus 5, and then whatever's left over, the 3x plus 2. And once again, we have been able to factor with decomposition. But wait, what would happen if instead of putting the negative 15x first and the 4x second, you got it backwards? Well, let's go ahead and look and see what happens. So this time we're going to do the exact same question, but we're going to write the 4x first and then the negative 15x. Same thing, still adds to get negative 11x. We just switched the two numbers into different spots. We're still going to divide it into 2 halves. We are still going to factor something out of the beginning. What does 6x squared and 4x have in common? A 2x. We divide both of them by 2x. 6x squared divided by 2x is 3x. 4x divided by the 2x is 2. There's a little bit of a pattern here. You're going to see where this is going. The minus 15x minus 10, what do they share in common? They share a negative 5. Negative 15x divided by negative 5 is going to leave us with 3x. A negative 10 divided by negative 5 is going to leave us with a plus 2. And just like that, it doesn't even matter. If you can do the sum and product and get the two numbers, it's not going to matter where you put them. It might be easier doing it one way, but we do get the exact same factors both ways. If you find that you get numbers that weird and it's about to give you fractions or something goes off, just switch them. You'll get something that'll factor out nicely. And that is how we factor by decomposition. I hope that this was helpful. I hope this helps you factor out those numbers that don't have an a value equal to 1. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you next time.